This is episode 24 of the Ownstream podcast featuring Kimberly and Theo Hanson.
Welcome to the Ownstream podcast. So happy you're with us for this episode. I'm Teresa Scoba.
And I'm Stephen Shelley.
And we are so excited to present this interview with Kimberly and Theo Hanson. Wow, what a fantastic, vibrant conversation we just had with Theo and Kimberly. And what a journey they've been on over the past 3 years, a little more.
Just a little over 3 years.
3.5 years. And it all started with Kimberly's diagnosis of breast cancer in March, or it sounded like it was a little bit before March, actually, 2014.
Yeah.
And since then, their lives have just burst open with life, actually, Usually, we talk about this on the podcast, but usually, cancer is the thing that, feels most like a death sentence, probably, of anything, of most diseases in our culture, of most things you can be told by a doctor. No one wants to hear that, and it feels like death, and we talk with Kimberly about that moment for her. And, I've had a number of family members who have had cancer. My father died of cancer, and but what happened for Theo and Kimberly, and then Theo as her partner, who just was, her health champion along the way, was that they went into massive recovery mode and they tell the story beautifully about the choices they made to boost Kimberly's health and eradicate the cancer in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and their way of doing that, as you've alluded to, was very unconventional. So we'll leave it for them to describe exactly their specific path with going from diagnosis to recovery to complete removal of any sign of cancer, which is it's really a breathtaking kind of 5 to 6 month period of their life, of anybody's life. But how they did it is something to pay close attention to, and something we've observed is more and more people. I think it's due to technology, because we can share our own stories. People are finding there's all kinds of alternative cures to virtually everything, and sharing success stories about that, and in this case, cancer, of course. And there's probably no more frightening word in the English language than cancer. And so we talk about what that's like to hear that, and then what they did with that, and a very, I think, serendipitous trip they had to take that kind of intervened and gave them just a little bit of reflection on what was occurring that caused them to make some choices that were unique. Anyway, it's a phenomenal story. They're actually, so to Teresa's point about how their life is just so opened since then, this conversation was held where we were in our home where we tend to do these recordings, and they were on a boat in the British Virgin Islands. And we did it on video, so we don't know them personally, so it was nice to watch them, see them, so we could have a little more good connection during the call. Anyway, so behind them there were these islands in crystal clear water and blue sky and a few clouds. It was just stunning. And along with that came some wind. So we've done our best to eliminate any kind of sound of wind in their microphone, but you may pick up on some of that. To me, it does not. It pales, the kind of minor nuisance that provides pales in comparison to the fabulous message that they are promoting that deserves every second of your attention. So, yeah. And I should say too that we learned of them through a pretty stirring film series that came out a year ago. By a real renegade filmmaker named Ty Bollinger. I believe that's how you say his name. It was called The Truth About Cancer, and it's impossibly long. It's some 13 hours. It feels like a mini series, but it is maybe some of the most important health content out there. We didn't watch the whole thing, so We can't say that with 100% certainty, but a really, really important series that they were in. Kimberly and Theo were in that series, and so that's how we first learned of them.
Yeah, Stephen was saying that people can share ways that they're curing or recovering from their diseases through technology, through the internet, in a way that has never been possible before. But what's interesting about this, and Ty Bollinger did that series. We've been following, different methods to cure and reverse cancer and heart disease through nutrition and other means, through some films for a while. Like that's, there was a doctor, back in the 40s, I can't remember, maybe even earlier than that, who was treating people and showing reversals of cancer
Max Gerson?
Dr. Gerson, back, many, many, many years ago through primarily nutritional means. So, there's really a history of this, and it's not well known, but part of Theo and Kimberly's mission is both to help pass on this treatment to others, to show others that they can recover and be empowered to take charge of their health, as well as to get the stories out of people who have done this. They've now helped, I can't remember how many people, they say in the podcast, recover from cancer, reverse their cancers, eradicate their cancers through the same means that they used. And so that's a big part of their mission, to get these stories out, because there are people who have done this, and they appear in that Truth About Cancer series, and Kimberly and Theo took Kimberly's story so beautifully here, that it's so important that these stories get out so people know this is possible.
Yeah, one great thing about them, and then we'll leave it, is they're not kind of like your traditional sort of woo-woo hippie types. I didn't pick up on that. I think they're very open-minded, but they don't come across as flighty or whack or whatever you might come into this with in terms of any sort of bias related to those who seek alternatives. They portray none of that in how they are. And I think you'll get that fairly quickly after listening to them. These two are very smart, very wise, very strong, and they're a wonderful complement to each other. I'd love to talk to them about just their relationship, because they're a really interesting duo. So one other thing we wanted to ask of you, we're all over social media. You can find us pretty much everywhere just using our Ownstream name. On Instagram, it's own_stream. Facebook, we're Ownstream. Twitter, we're Ownstream. In my dreams, I'm Ownstream. But also, we have a mailing list, and every week on Mondays we send out a weekly what we call tip-off email, where it's very short and sweet. 3 things that we've learned in the last week in the areas of lifestyle, business, and spirit. These could be anything from an inspiring quote, an individual, a tip, or a tool designed to inspire more freedom and power in your life. We'd love for you to sign up for that. Again, we only send out that Monday email. We also send out reminders about our podcast. That's it. So we won't be spamming you. We don't give away email addresses, anything like that. We're trying to organize community. We want to share really good, empowered information. So we'd love for you to sign up for that. The place to do that is at ownstream.co, and just click sign up in the upper right-hand corner. All right. That's enough from us. We'll be back afterwards to wrap up. Please enjoy this terrific conversation with Kimberly and Theo Hanson. Well, yeah, I think we should just plunge in and just, I guess, by way of starting, we learned of the two of you through, I guess, the Ty Bollinger series. I don't even think it's correct to call it a film. It's more of like a. When I was watching, I was thinking, this reminds me of that in the 1980s. You may not remember this, but like The Winds of War with, I think it was Robert Mitchum or something. It's like every night it's a 2-hour. It was this amazing 20-hour documentary about the truth about cancer.
Yeah, 13 hours. I don't know who has 13 hours to catch all of it, even if you did, because you process all that he shared.
I know, it's so much information. And now he has another 2 films out. He's clearly full of a lot of energy, but I think he's touching on some pretty important things, obviously. And so anyway, we learned of the two of you through that, and then I don't remember what it was that sort of put you and I in touch, Theo. Something maybe somebody shared that you had maybe another interview of yours, but nevertheless, it was the kind of interview that Teresa and I think, have been longing for because, I think for us, and I'll let Teresa talk about this just to begin with, but, every person listening to this has probably had someone either afflicted with cancer or who has passed away from cancer. Teresa's father just 5.5 years ago. And so it became a bit of a mission of yours to try to understand more about what's going on here. And so we've been students of the theme of the truth about cancer since that time.
Yeah. Right before, my father had bladder cancer, I'd been vegetarian for a long time, but had really intuitively felt like I wanted to be vegan and be eating just plant foods. And I think somebody introduced me to the China study right before my father died. And we watched Forks Over Knives, I think, a few months before that. And I had this longing to change his life. And I knew that I sort of floated some ideas, but it didn't really take. And he very much had a very conventional cancer treatment. And then cancer has appeared throughout my family. Both my mom and my aunt have had breast cancer. And so I've watched all of this knowing some of what I know, but not really knowing anyone personally, I think, who has healed themselves. I know a lot. We've watched documentaries on Gerson. We've been just like hungry for this information since, so this is a personal passion of ours. We're plant-based. We want to get the word out about all of this. We know some people who have even started to try to do things like this for themselves, but then ultimately did chemotherapy and died, so... Yeah. I'm sure you do too. So anyway, we are so happy to talk to you both and really inspired by your journey and really excited to talk to you. So should we start by tell us, so we're going to get into all that, but tell us a little bit.
And I should say, if you hear wind in the background, this will just be an audio recorded interview. So you should know that Theo and Kimberly are on a boat in the British Virgin Islands. And as we look at them on our computer screen, there's beautiful water, some islands, sky, and clouds and light. It's absolutely the picture of beauty and health.
Brilliant light,
thriving.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about where you were before all this happened, because I know that you guys were, at least self-described, you were not health nuts. They're shaking their heads. So tell us a little bit about, what happened before March, what life was like before March 2014 and what happened.
Yeah, I think I'll jump in first because I'll just start from my viewpoint. We had, in our businesses, we had started to expand and we were in multiple cities. And so we had a home in Chicago and our primary home in San Diego. And I looked in the mirror in late 2013 and I was morbidly obese. And I just didn't understand. I was looking at that, who is this guy looking back at me in the mirror? I don't understand how this happened. So I started thinking I need to make some lifestyle changes like many people do. And it was mostly driven by vanity. I don't think it was really driven by I want to be healthy. It was, I just don't want to be fat. And I'd already had a heart attack January 1st, 2007. So I didn't really master any lifestyle changes, even though I had plenty of motivation. So then October, November, December, I'm floundering around, but I'm starting to make better choices. I'm not eating, 6,000 calorie dinner because I really did do that. Sometimes it was a little insane between all the drinks and appetizers, a meal, dessert, more drinks, come home, have another drink, a quick snack before you go to bed because you're starving, right? You just ate all that food. So I got back to the San Diego house. Kim was ahead of me by about a week or two. It was January 18th-ish or so. And I walked into the kitchen and I compared kind of what was in there compared to what had been at our Chicago house. And I said, hey, you know what, if you guys don't start eating better, somebody's going to end up getting cancer, like rocks in my mouth. And just a few weeks later, that would actually be real, is that Kim would have that diagnosis. But we did have, our youngest was turning 18. Kim was having her 48th birthday. Our oldest was having their first child. Our middle son was getting married, all in 30 days. And then she was diagnosed with cancer. So that's kind of where it started.
Yeah, we were very fast-paced. We had real estate in Chicago and in San Diego, and so we thought we'd be smart and be part-time in Chicago and a big, beautiful house out there, and and me take care of the home in San Diego, and then I'd fly out every few weeks to Chicago, and there's never a shortage on wonderful places to go to eat in Chicago, and drink. We definitely were those people. And I was doing a self-breast exam by myself, and in January, he was still gone. I think it was January. I might have found it in early or late December, and I found a lump. And I knew that it probably wasn't a good thing. And so then he came home and I said, hey, I found this and I think I should get checked. And he goes, get in right away. And then the day I had scheduled my doctor's appointment, my first grandchild was born. So I put it off, and she was born in February, and I don't think I got it until March, I think. Yeah. Okay. So I was diagnosed in March 2014. So, yeah.
You guys are grandparents.
3
Whoa.
We got 3 of them.
We have a 1-year-old, so we're kind of marveling at that. But
well, I guess I'd love to hear about. Well, I guess let's unpack that moment of being told by a doctor in whatever circumstance that was. Maybe try to paint the picture for us of what that's like to feel that and to hear that. I think growing up in the 70s and 80s as I did, that is often portrayed as maybe the worst moment you could possibly have. And I'll say that looking at you two, knowing that, as you've said, that was maybe the best thing that's ever happened to the both of you because of what you did since then.
Yeah. So it is. It's like time stands still. And it's almost like you're living somebody else's life at that moment. You're hearing it or you're watching a movie. And I still remember I was in the kitchen making tacos. I'd already had biopsy done, and my OB doctor called me at 5:30 in the evening, which was not a time she should be in the office. And we were friends. We don't do things together, but we had hung out for, my oldest at the time was, I think, 19, and she delivered them. So we knew each other. And so she said, hi, Kim, it's, who she is. And I knew at that moment. And she just said, get a pen and paper, you have breast cancer. And she gave me a bunch of words to write down and told me, DCIS, infiltrating, grade 1, 1.6 centimeters. And you're going to build I want you to see this, I can't even remember. I think it was an oncosurgeon, and I didn't even really know what that meant, and a nurse navigator and a cancer team. And when she said that just stuck in my head, cancer team. And that was the beginning of a new life for us, cancer. Yeah.
And Theo, how did that news come to you? Did you come home sometime later, or were you there when she was on the phone?
It's so funny because I'm glad you asked that. Kim and I talk about it all the time, having this radically different memory of the exact same event. How is it possible that two people can experience it? Yeah, I remember her coming in and trying to explain it to me, and it just wasn't, it didn't feel like logical. It wasn't even a vocabulary that you could understand. I felt like she was trying to communicate something, but I felt kind of powerless. And so I think at that point when she had found the lump, we said, well, let's get you to a doctor, because I'm not a doctor, and what do I know about cancer? And so it was that same theme was still running. That same movie was still playing for us in our head. Was, well, like, okay, I guess that's what we're going to do. But there's the gravity of it, just kind of, you sort of like, you don't want to go to the negative. At least I don't. So I just kept thinking, well, it'll be a tough road, but we'll get through this. We'll do that. But it does kind of actually feel a little bit like you've just been sat on, and you're feeling a little bit suffocated, and you're trying to smile, when you don't.
Right.
I definitely want to. So powerless, I think, is how a lot of people feel about the idea of getting cancer, and then once getting cancer, right? We've been trained that listen to the person in the white coat. I think I read that in one of your interviews, something you'd written. So tell us what happened next. So I know that, you were presented with all of the very traditional responses, right? Like tell us what that experience was like with the cancer team, and then what occurred to you to do something differently. Yeah. How did you know to do something differently?
Yeah. Right? Is it okay for this?
Yeah, I'll let Theo talk about this because it was kind of so fast paced for me, but I'll jump in too. But he can do it from his perspective again, and I'll.
Well, because I think this is one of those vulnerable moments we have to own. Because I think, for Kim and I, one of the things that we really want to do is empower people after feeling so powerless. But sometimes we have to own where we're not showing up. And so I thought I was doing an amazing job showing up. But Kim's perception, which is the only one that really counted, was that I wasn't showing up, that I really wasn't involved. And I was like, to me, it was like, well, I'm planning on how do we liquidate assets? How do we have all the finances on hand? How do I take more time off work? I was like, to me, I'm thinking that I'm doing everything that you're supposed to. That's exactly wrong. What she needed was for me to be present, for me to be communicative, to be involved in researching and asking questions and ready to go to doctor's appointments. And so she confronted me on it. And so that's the vulnerable moment that I have to own and say, well, she said, hey, this is the thing that this is how I feel, is that you're not showing up and that you don't really even care. So then I'm kind of actually mad. So then I become an expert overnight on her diagnosis. So that's kind of really kind of where it started, to be totally honest. And then now I'm fully armed, and she now is a little bit worried that I'm a little bit aggressive. And so we're headed off to the first doctor's meeting, and she says, now as we're walking, now listen, you be nice to her because this woman's going to be cutting on me. So
don't say anything until I give you the okay.
Yeah.
So we walk in and we go. The nurse hands me a booklet, tells me to get my gown on. The doctor will be right in. Well, an hour later, in a freezing cold, sterile room, sitting there, she finally walks in. She opens my chart, looks at it, and goes, "You have cancer. I'm sorry." Very robotic, very to the point. And then she said, "Did you read the book that the nurse gave you?" And she said, "Here are your two options." And she gave me two options. It was, both breasts being removed, radiation, chemotherapy, lumpectomy. She's saying all these things that I'm reading in this book. But before that, Theo had started doing some studying, and we began to really dive in and start looking at, my diagnosis. And I'm like, how is this? This isn't a very serious cancer. Why are they wanting to be so drastic? And I couldn't understand. And I remember thinking, if Theo hadn't done studying and him and I started talking, I wouldn't have felt empowered enough to already in my mind go, wait a minute, who are you to tell me I have two options? This is my body, my choice. I'm deciding what I want to do here. And then at that point, I kind of went white, and I looked at Theo and I said, get her. So I think
that's great.
Get her.
Yeah, so it's funny because I love every time we get to share, I'm thinking, gosh, there was this important thing, or how did you not see that, or how did I not see that? And so one of the things that I saw when the doctor walked in was she had the chart in her hands, and she's looking down at it, and she glances up, and she goes, "Hi, Kimberly." So she's reading Kim's name off of the chart. Couldn't even prepare for that little one thing where you could have maybe better bedside manners and strike a little confidence. And so you just sort of looked at it. The next thing she said was, "I don't have back all of your test and lab results yet, but I want to talk to you about a 5-year regimen of tamoxifen," which that was the thing that we had just gotten done studying, because we were not looking at anything alternative. We were only looking at conventional at the time. That's all of our space. We didn't believe anything different as we wanted to. We wanted to think that there were other ways, but we were just diving into it. And I had read a study that women at age 48 that have a 5-year regimen of tamoxifen, 30% of them will develop another cancer, and 70% of them will die from that much more aggressive cancer as a side effect. So the side effect of treating cancer is cancer. It just didn't feel like a journey we wanted to go, and we definitely wanted to explore it. So we would need to know if Kim's cancer was estrogen and progesterone receptor positive in order to even have that conversation of taking a lethal pharmaceutical. So that was like milestone one. That was the thing when, like, all of a sudden all tides turned, everything changes direction, and it's never going to be, you can't put back in the box whatever just came out, because now for me, I'm looking at the Wizard of Oz moment, and I'm like, holy crud, this woman doesn't know who we are, she's not thinking about these things properly. So as soon as she gives me the green light, I just start drilling into, why are we talking about that right now? And then she started talking about survival rates. She was like, there's basically a 1 to 3% mortality rate when we use these three things in combination: surgery, radiation, and tamoxifen. And I was like, according to what study? And so I went over these studies with her, and she was like, no, I think you're wrong. And I'm like, I have them on my phone. You want to look at them? Like, here's the studies. Like, I've come to the conversation ready to really dive in. And she was like, oh, really? And so it was more like a 24% mortality rate, not a 2 to 3% mortality rate. So, like, if we're that far off there, where else are we going to be far off? And we had a pretty major event planned where I was going to go out to Europe and grab the boat and finish sailing, like the boat that we're on today. We were going to sail that down along Morocco, Africa, across to the Atlantic. So that was supposed to be leaving. And so we said, well, what do you want to do? And it was supposed to only be maybe 2 weeks or so. And then Kim was going to join, and we were going to do an amazing sail. So we asked the doctor if there was a difference if we waited 30 days to start, or if we need to start right away. And she said, oh, no, that was my thesis in med school on this particular cancer. There's no difference in treatment outcome if you do in 30 days or 36 months for early stage. I was like, what?
And for me, I think that was my moment when she said that, because right prior to that, she said, we can have you in and out, have your surgeries done. You'll be better in 6 months after you have, the expanders in for implants and all the things she's talking about. And she goes, if you do radiation, the beautiful cancer center is right across the street from here. And, you can pull up to the curb. And I'm like, oh, valet parking for my radiation. Great. And as we're leaving, that was my moment to go, wow, there's a lot of money in cancer. Why is this building the most beautiful building out of the whole hospital? And so,
I think that was that second reinforcement was, if it's so beautiful, maybe it's because they're so successful.
Yeah.
They weren't. The numbers weren't successful. There wasn't the survival rate. They're counting 60 months. They don't want to talk about 61 months. Well, I kind of like Kim for more than 60 more months. I think I'd like to know her a little longer than that. So I know it's just kind of strange. So that was it when we started feeling that reinforcement. So we ran off. We did that trip. The trip took much longer than we expected, and we landed back May 31st. And we decided, so June 1, let's go back, see our doctor, and she's gone. She doesn't even work at that hospital organization anymore, that doctor's office. No one can find our records. Nobody has a clue about our file. We're just sort of stupefied. We're like, wow, this is really not feeling super good. So we went to choose the world's best. Still conventional. We still went for the best. We said we're a cash payer. We'll pay in advance, and I want the best. I want the absolute best. So we found an oncosurgeon that was considered to be San Diego's best. She's now in Atlanta, phenomenal doctor, but very much an oncologist. And we started putting together, and she said, I want all new scans. I'm not going to do anything. It's been too long. And so we were like, okay, that sounds great. So we did an MRI. Or was that 30 days later? Because she schedules it. At the same time, I get a phone call from a friend who really encourages me to go talk to a mutual friend about his cancer. We had done some business together, and I had no idea that this particular individual had ever had cancer. And so I thought, well, why would I talk to him? So he said, well, he has this juicing protocol that he used to cure cancer. And I was like, great, what a waste of my time. I need to find out. Yes, I don't need to find people who do juicing. But you still felt that cosmic pull. So I went in and called him. We talked about it. He invited us over to his house right away. He lived about 40 minutes away. We shot over. He was so nice. And he just sat there, and he did this entire protocol for us, showed us how easy it was, how totally reasonable it tasted, all these things. and gave us a whole series of things to do. And it gave to us all in writing, like in the form of email and some notes. And we walked out the door thinking, what a nice man. He looks amazing for somebody who had esophageal cancer, stage 4, given like 3 months to live with no chemo, and 6 months with. And so we opted for none of it. And it's been, at that time, 13 years. So we were like, wow. And then I'm thinking, and then she says what I'm thinking, but she says it out loud.
Yeah, I just said, well, I get it, maybe, but it probably worked for him because it's juice and it's healing and it's going over his throat,
Right.
Cancer, esophageal cancer. I want to find somebody with breast cancer, that's done that. And just 3 years ago, Ty hadn't done the truth about cancer. Nothing. There was nothing. You try to type in anything and you get a bunch of woohoo, crazy people. And you're like, I don't want to follow that person. This is crazy. So it's really tough when you feel alone. Yep. And we definitely did. But yeah.
But the seed was planted.
Yeah.
And so that we met with him on June 25th. On June 26th, we started juicing. We decided we would do it like with no questions asked, not as a standalone. I thought it would help her immune system so that she might endure chemotherapy. I found a study or two that showed that people who use nutrition during chemotherapy, they stated that they had a better experiences overall, less nausea, faster recovery, stuff like that. So I thought, well, at least it won't hurt. And since I'm 267 pounds and I'm that guy, maybe I would lose a few pounds if I did it with her and she'd be more likely to do it. And so we started on June 26th and we never stopped. And I just like that, like the moral of the story, or the kind of like the sweet spot of everything is, fast forward October, she was cancer free. I went on to lose 110 pounds, and we juiced straight through for 13 months. Despite the fact that she was cancer free, we just stayed on a full-time juicing protocol all the way through. And now we have massive health and vibrancy. We don't get sick. We're not stressing about stuff. Our value systems all shift. We don't do any of the old professional stuff we do. We only keep one home, sort of. I guess we have 2 homes again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we travel the world now, so we just like this is what you'll find every time you do a video interview. You're rarely going to find us not doing something and living life like full out. But we also are all in for all life and for everyone else. We feel like the knowledge was given to us to steward, and then to also justify. So I think we live in sort of two places where I spend a lot of energy trying to unwrap or unbundle or uncouple why does it work. And then there's been just a series of events that have been phenomenal to have a medical advisory team of some of the best published and respected doctors in nutrigenomics or food as medicine. And so it's been like an absolutely epic journey.
I got chills. That's amazing. God, there's so many directions we could go. And I guess one thing I'd like to try to kind of clarify is at that point when you decide to go in the direction of this juicing cleanse, what if any resistance may have appeared, either within yourself or from the outside, family members, kids, parents, what have you, and then how do you navigate that? Because I think that is common across any kind of life area where you want to set out and try something maybe unconventional. So what does that look like, and then what caused you to carry on through that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things for anybody that we talk to now, and for me, was I was excited. We were seeing on MRI the tumor shrinking. We looked better than we had ever looked. I felt fantastic, and every time I had friends or family, I'd show them, look at this beautiful thing we're doing, and I actually had people going, that's not healthy. What if you lose too much weight? And I said, well, what would chemo do? How much weight would I lose with chemo? And I had people, my parents are in their 70s, and we love them, but they're in that frame of mind that the doctor knows best. And she kept saying, I know, but maybe you're just getting lucky and maybe the scans aren't right. Well, you promise that you'll at least listen to the doctors and do chemo anyways alongside of this. And I lost friends, and nobody came alongside and got healthy with us and juiced with us. But I guarantee you, if I would have lost my hair, they would have been shaving their heads.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is really tough. And we still don't have the friends that we had prior. We have very few that stuck with us, but most of them think that we're crazy and that we are stupid. And it actually got back to me that some of our one really close friends said, well, when she dies, they'll see they made the wrong choice.
Wow.
Oh.
So that's the type of resistance, and every person. And we when we do talk to somebody and they're deciding that this is the path they want to take, I tell them, just be prepared. And you're the most important person. And if you have to keep them out of your life while you're healing and getting better, tell them that you're going to take a break from them, because you're this is the first time in your life you have to be selfish. You have to think of yourself. It's life or death.
I'm going to agree with what she said.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about, what you learned in this process about what cancer is. I think what we know about cancer is that in the traditional treatment, we try to cut it out, shrink it. It's about the tumor itself, right? So tell us about what you've learned about what cancer is, and what's the difference between what juicing does to that versus what the traditional treatment does to that.
This is Theo's ballpark. I didn't get killed, and I drank juice, and I ate clean, and so he's the one that did the studying. He really stepped up there, so I'll let him fill in this part.
Yeah, I was never going to be accused of not showing up on that one. And plus, I think I thought that there was a new discovery that needed to be shared with the world. That was totally new news, and that it was going to be some strange combination of compounds that, when utilized, would have this anti-tumorous effect. So we really thought it was nutrigenomic or food related. That was really where we started the first step in, and we know that that's a cornerstone still. But now when we look at cancer, we kind of have to look at it from a quantum, its smallest. What does it refine down to? What's the conversation? It's my opinion at this point that what we're looking at is genetic expression. So it's just a switch. There's so many switches. But are the switches we want for health, are they turning on or off as necessary? Or is there some delay in messaging or inability to receive messaging? So you might have a genetic mutation. Very rare, not very often. Most of the time, it's just an overstimulation where we have the signals, and the chemical signals are so vast, and so many of them, because people are in a state of inflammation. We have all these chronic diseases, and then the magic of parasympathis and sympathis, which is the autonomic, the involuntary system, which is like T-Rex, holy crap, run, right? So at that state, we're all tightened up at sympathis, and then you start thinking about an amazing meal or intimacy with a partner. It's parasympathis, you're relaxed, you're breathing deeper, Well, in sympathis, 70-80% of the immune system is locked down, and in parasympathis, it's all open. So when we're all stressed every day in life with all the things that go on and happening, we're living in this place just all closed up. So we have an overtaxed immune system that's disallowed to operate full-time and flow. We have nutrigenomics, right? We have epigenetics, some things that we're born with. Those can predispositions. They can be switches that are preloaded in the wrong position. They can be a number of different things. But we also have microbiomic is really what we've learned is now kind of almost as equal to me as to how you're eating and what you're eating is how are you addressing deficiencies in the gut, because we have a history as people of a high use of antibiotics as well as environmental toxins that are really, really good, and a food system is really, really good at destroying the balance of nature in our gut. It's so much about how we feel every day when we wake up is related to our gut on what our brain thinks. And so, microbiomics, metabolomics, which is actually the signaling within the system, the platform of signaling, but that seems to fix itself to address everything else. If we try to go target and be reductionist there, we kind of get a little lost in the quagmire and kind of have weird cascading events. But if we just stick to what we put in our mouth, exercise, stress management, and then the big one is love and support. And that's kind of the one that, it feels woo-woo the first times I started kind of nearing it, getting close to it, and now it's no longer that. The evidence is becoming overwhelming. When we look at people who feel isolated, even if they're in a crowd, even if they have a large family, their disease rate is much higher, their outcomes are much poorer. And so we start looking at love and support, which also sometimes involves, people holding secrets or not being able to feel heard or how they speak, not being able to ask for help. And unfortunately, cancer patients, most of them fit a profile. And post-wrap, I'll send that to you here and share that with you. It's an amazing article written by a doctor who treated thousands of cancer patients, and he defines what he saw in those patients as a way of living life. And it wasn't about like being reckless or something else. They were mostly people who took care of other people rather than themselves. They were considered to be givers, kind, generous, good, giving with their time and the way that they serve others, but they didn't serve themselves well. They oftentimes don't think they're really worth it. They just feel like they have to do these other things. So that's for us, when you ask, like, how do you successfully reverse cancer? Because we've had the pleasure of doing it dozens of times personally with people, and then we spoke all over the place now, and then we've even moved forward with the Disease Reversal Center, is that we know that when you do all of those things together, the body does what it's designed to do, which is to heal. Because cancer is not a foreign invader, right? It's your body in a state of dysfunction sending you a message that's been going on for far too long. It's a symptom. The root cause is down below those other things. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah. I want to talk more about how your life has changed since. Did you want to ask?
Great. Yeah,
so you talked about a little bit about how your life has changed since the juicing. So tell us, so you cleared yourself of cancer, and then tell us the other ways in which your life then has changed, because I know your life has transformed since then. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, we since then have had 2 more granddaughters. So we have 3 beautiful granddaughters. We spend a lot of time with our family. We spend a lot of time traveling, and we spend a lot of time helping others. And whatever you believe, karma, God, it comes back to you. And so for us, we sold off all the material things that just were holding us back, we felt, and that didn't represent our life now. And we live part-time most of the time in Costa Rica. And then we also have our house San Diego, where 2 of our granddaughters are, and our oldest and youngest son is, and then our middle son's in Idaho with our 3rd granddaughter. So we travel all over the place to see them, and we eat 100% plant-based, probably 70% raw. We juice at least twice a day. I have a yearly blood panel done and make sure that I'm trending in the right direction, which I am, and so you just can't, for us, we eat at home a lot, or we eat out, and if we do, we try to make sure that we're the ones. I think that's the hardest part, is when you're out with friends and they feel bad. If you're not eating the way they're eating, and they start to explain when the waiter comes up, well, they're vegan or they're plant-based, and I hope you have something for them. And we're always like, we're okay. We either prepare beforehand and we go out and let's just be social. Let's have a good time, and don't put so much emphasis on the food, and let's just spend time together. And so, I definitely don't. I exercise. I don't stress over things anymore. I just keep it in check. Theo watches out for me and helps me in that area. And I think that's why, like he was saying earlier, we thought it was the food, but actually it was the whole combination of the 4 pillars, the love and support. We just somehow got them right. And so that's important. That's part of, what you want to do in life. And so I would never go back like we had before.
Yeah, I think stress management too. I think that we adopted mindful meditation and started using it as a regular practice, just pausing and taking some time, typically in the mornings. We tried to create morning rituals. We tried to do things together a lot, even including in those a little bit of yoga. I still haven't become a yoga fanatic because I'm just a former fat guy who's like, hey, it still hurts when I do certain things, But I think taking the time to stretch, to breathe, and we're mindful of that. And then I think we try to be really conscious of realizing sort of how do our words land on the other person, and am I listening, and where am I coming from, and where is she coming from sometimes when she's communicating, and rather than worrying about the other stuff, and just realizing that we're a team, and team members are constantly building each other up, and they're not tearing each other down, they're not taking out a bad day on each other, things like that. Just they're little tiny tweaks, and I think we were pretty good at it before cancer, but I think we're amazing at it today, is that we really make that strong effort. And I think that we just choose not to put energy into things that we can't do together or that we don't agree on. Like if we just don't really feel like there are things that are good for others, things that we can do together, we pretty much just choose to just not do that stuff, because otherwise it means that we'll be involved in projects separate from each other, which I don't know anything wrong with, but I think for us it just felt good to be able to sort of put your foot on the gas pedal of life and just run around doing a bunch of great stuff and following through. Like we did an event in Costa Rica, we had 52 attendees, like 18 staff members, and a three-person film crew, just to build tribe around cancer. So people who had cancer, who had the conventional system failed, or maybe they were struggling, trying to make a decision, just getting them in front of medical doctors and cancer survivors that are relatively well known. Chris Wark from Speak Cancer, Dr. Sunil Pai, for example. There's a couple of doctors we brought up too. They're just bringing everyone together for 7 days. It's 5 days. We brought them together for it, and that was epic, right? So we couldn't have done that if that was in our old life. There was just no space. So we just try to create space for that now.
That's part of our new life for sure. Is looking back at what would we do different for somebody else that wasn't available to us. Yeah. And I think that we said, let's get these people together. It's different when you're watching a 13 series documentary, but you want to know these people, you want to touch them, you want to get face to face and say, I want to know about this. And so we did that, and we built a tribe of people, and we plan on doing it again and again and again, because we want them to be able to, and they are now, they have support, and you have this cancer, that's my cancer, I haven't seen anybody yet, and you have an accountability partner, and these are lifelong friends now that didn't know each other before that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think across the board, we've talked to now 25 people. We've had 25 episodes approximately, and it seems like virtually everybody we've spoken to who's had a moment where they've been either forced or they've decided to pull back from their life and look at it. Sometimes it's just intense stress or unhappiness. Sometimes it's disease. Sometimes it's all kinds of different circumstances. But it seems like everybody sells their stuff, hits the road, moves somewhere else, and it just starts doing the shit they want to do. They stop pausing, in other words. And that's kind of what I'm getting from you guys is like, and Theo, your description of cancer as being a kind of our systems are under attack 24/7 within this kind of mainstream paradigm of how we eat and how we live, and the stress and the 60-hour work weeks or whatever it may be, or more. It seems like it's getting more and more. And that if we just kind of regulate that, the symptoms of that disappear. Well, it seems like now you guys have kind of just gone full blast in the direction of full vibrance and thriving. And so, what is that like? What is that intuitive or that instinctive kind of thing that happens? And how would you describe it when you're like, all right, we're going to start traveling, we're going to sell all these things, we're going to kind of do things radically differently? What does that redirection feel like inside? Talk about that a little bit, because I think people can really benefit from that kind of decision. Very powerful.
Well, I'd say for me personally, it was similar to what it was like when we started the juicing protocol, and about a month into it, it was like a shade was lifted. A shade went up, like if you're at a restaurant or somewhere and you watch a shade, it's kind of cloudy outside, you can kind of see it, and then this beautiful bright light comes in and everything's clearer. You see different colors, that you hadn't seen before. that's kind of what it's like for me now. I don't ever want to put the shade down. I want to keep going in the direction, and life is just realize you face your mortality. You realize life is too short. I'm going to live it every moment. And I even do that when I'm juicing. You know, there's times where I'm like, oh, I got to go in and I got to juice and I got to clean up, you know, and even if Theo does it with me. And then I had to go, okay, stop. You think everything out now, I think. And I go, this saved my life. This is part of what saved my life. I need to be thankful to the fruits and vegetables that I'm putting in here. And I need to appreciate that I have this and I'm able to do this and that I can do it for myself. And so, you know, that's for me what it is.
Yeah, great answer. I felt like none of it was radical while it was happening. But looking backwards, I'm like, holy crap, I must to some people. What felt real was that you would pause, and it really felt like The Matrix, that movie series was really real, where you kind of like, you pop up, you're like, everyone's plugged into a machine. They've all bought into crap. Hey, guys, like, that stuff's not food. And they're like, yes, it is. Oh, it's not food. You know, they're like, yes, it is. I'm like, it's not food. So it was like a series of those kinds of things. And then just feeling, there was a moment, I think, where a period of time where I felt like I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't feel like anything that I know has any relevance on the future. Like, I feel like everything that I think is real is real and important if I want to be 267 pounds and throw up every night in my sleep, have advanced sleep apnea, or I had a heart attack. If I want to be that guy whose waistline is just continuing to get bigger and bigger, and I'm probably going to die soon, leaving my wife, well, that's just, yeah, I guess that is real. Or maybe I have to find out what matters to me and to us, and then still feeling this strange sense of obligation to the protocol, because the protocol was given to us freely. And so that was an expression of love, like, that I just wasn't really, it didn't have a place. Like, there was no agenda. He didn't want any recognition. He didn't want any money. He wouldn't take any compensation for his time. And here we were, like, radically changing. And, you know, maybe I dropped 50 something pounds already when I felt like it's my job to make sure this flame never quenches. And so then a mission starts to evolve, a sense of vision and purpose. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I'm a zealot for health. What happened? Like,
yoga's next, Theo. You're in Costa Rica too long. You're gonna be a yogi before it's all said and done.
Benjamin Button. I'm gonna be 2 years old in no time. Yeah, I don't know. I think it didn't feel really radical at the time. And then I think so pretty early on. So I met Ty and everybody in January, March of 2015. I met them at the same time that I had a really interesting providential meeting with a young couple that was really clear on wanted to make change in the world, and they created a medical meal platform or company, and they wanted help launching that on a global and first a national level. And I agreed to go do that. I met them, and then I met Ty all within like 2 or 3 days of each other, and all of a sudden you started seeing ways to do and play life. But this one young entrepreneur, he actually confronted me and said, "Why aren't you vegan? Like, why? Like, you're almost there." And I was like, well, because I'm not motivated by animal fairness, cruelty. Like, that's not even in my space. Like, I'm the cancer guy right now. Like, talk to me about that. And he was like, I know, but everything you're doing, except for, like, you'll eat egg and you'll occasionally eat cheese, are those health promoting. And the science was just screaming that weekend. I was at a cardiovascular summit where these food scientists were presenting 30 years of work at the International Cardiovascular Summit. And I'm like, eggs, one of the worst foods on the planet. If you have heart disease, great. Cheese, interesting, also not good for health. And so May 31st, 2015, I made the declaration that I would hold a no animal consumption space, period, to end all confusion for all things until such a time as that our food system came back online where it was food, because it didn't make any sense to me. I sat there that night thinking, how do we eat an animal that's 20, 30, 40, 50 generations old, where every minute of its life was lived in terror, and then it's processed, and then we burn it and we eat it, and we think it's like, how do any of us think that that's actually has anything similar to do with 100 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, 2,000. Like that's just, so I was like, there's no reason not to. So I just declared that space. And it was really driven not from an animal, originally from like an animal awareness. Since then, I've become so painfully aware that it's like, it hurts. Like I just like the amount of empathy is a little bit overwhelming. So I called back to Kim. I was in Chicago, not living there. I was actually in Chicago at the Cardiovascular Summit. And I said, hey, I got to talk to you. And she goes, no, I got something important I want to share with you. But you go first. I'm like, no, you go first, And so then you said.
I said, hey, I'm going to give up the rest of the animal products. And he goes, what? And I go, yeah, I watch Vegucated, and I don't know why we're hanging on to that. I said, I'm done, but you can do what you want to do. He goes, well, that's what I wanted to tell you. We've changed. We definitely are, our brains working the same as it has. And weird things like that are always happening.
And I think it's just one step further. We chose to be active versus passive, which meant that I'm not mad. I'm super loving of any of my friends that just don't understand it or doesn't have a place and disagree. I'm totally fine with that. Don't pretend that your science is on your side. That's never going to work because science is based on observation. I don't care about what somebody published. I care about what can we see all together over and over and over again. And how do you look at this guy, if you're my friend, and you know I was 267 pounds and I had a heart attack and I was having a hard time tying my shoes, and now I can go do a Spartan 300 workout. Like, how do you look at me and tell me that like for just a basic observation, science, your own simple system, you should look at me and say, whatever he's doing, I should do, right? So as long as that argument's not there. But for us, we decided to take a very active role in simply connecting dots and trying to be good communicators that, like, hey, guys, we need to pause. In our time as human beings, we need to pause the food system. We lost control. Basically, 10 CEOs are deciding what you eat for breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, dessert, snack, and what you drink. And that's just it. There's like 10 human beings, ultimately, when you look at these parent companies, and all of our resources are under destruction. Like San Diego, that's where we're from. Try to drink the tap water. It tests positive for Viagra. How does tap water test positive for an erectile dysfunction pharmaceutical?
Yeah.
It's because
all these people can't get, all these couples can't get pregnant. It's like, it's not, it just makes sense.
Yeah. And that's when we decided we would look at the environmental side of it. So I guess we actually became vegan environmentalists, tree huggers, who decided that we'd become organic farmers. So it's nuts. So we have this beautiful farm in Costa Rica, and I'm super excited. We have a bag full of seeds that we've acquired bringing down because getting seeds are a big deal. I'm like, oh, it's so true. I'm a total hippie. Like, we just care about drinkable water and clean air and quality food, and then how we treat each other. We don't look at nations the same anymore. I'm a large student of theology and a large student of history of man, and I see benefits in having boundaries in nations to define value systems geographically where they live, but sometimes we take it to a point where all we do is focus on the differences in each other, and we don't see sameness anymore. And that's when I see where man has done the worst it can do as an animal, is when it sees differences. And so we spend our time being active vegans, sharing and trying to enlighten people and illuminate, if nothing else, the sameness in each other. So we like to travel around the world and find out how same we really are. And we find out that everyone's exactly the same. We all want the same things in life, and we all have the same fears and pains, and we all have the same aspirations. We might want to buy different plastic crap, but ultimately most of our life goals are the same. And so really that's been, that part of the transition has been the most interesting. And it sounds so silly because your listeners don't have a chance to see. So I've got this ridiculous beard. I'm super pugnacious. I used to love, getting on a ground game in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I trained with some really amazing people. I had a lot of fun with it. So when I say this next part, this is where it's so silly. Your ability to receive and give love radically changes when you're healthy and you eat right. And so it feels really nice to be loved. And I gotta admit, it feels kind of cool to love other people unconditionally, right? And that wasn't available to us the same way when I was eating almond or ground
He's a nice guy. He's always been a pretty nice guy, but he's a much nicer guy plant-based.
I love what you said about it was your responsibility for the flame not to quench, something to that effect. And the other thing I was thinking when Stephen asked the last question as you were answering it is a lot of what we've heard from our guests too, when you discover this radical new way of life outside the matrix, is wanting to share it with others, So I was wondering if you could talk, you've already alluded to a number of times, said a few things, but about more specifically, what you guys are doing now, how you've organized your lives around sharing this with others, serving others, creating a tribe. We'd love to hear more about that.
And maybe some specifics about the ways you help people who have cancer who come to you for help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we get a lot of them. Typically, what we always offer to do is get on a phone call, hopefully a video call, so they get a chance to see a survivor, because that's what Kim needed. I really respect and honor that. And then we try to meet them where they're at, and then we try to understand sort of how to make the connection, and warn them. It's like you're exploring two worlds that right now can't be together at the same time in the same place, and so you have to make a decision. Do you want to let your mind and logic come forward, or do you want to rely on trust in a failing system? And before I get negative on it, I'll typically ask them, do you want me to give you facts and information and viewpoint as on the survivor side of the conversation, or do you want me? You just want to ask a couple questions, because I can tell you stuff, but I can't untell you what I'm about to tell you. So again, back to the matrix, red pill, blue pill. Like, it's kind of like, do you really want to know what we did, or you just kind of want to feel it out and see if we're crazy? Because that's cool too. We can do the crazy conversation, right? So we usually do that. That's something that we do all the time, and we do that a couple times a week, and we're glad to do it. Sometimes it's a little taxing emotionally, because we care every time we meet a person. And we used to take it personal. They would take all the information, start, and then get pressured or under fear of their own, and they would adopt a conventional system. But it's not personal now. Now we understand. We really take it through, and we just want to be a part of it in any way, shape, or form that we can. Even if they need to go there and come back, if they need to go to conventional, we're not anti anything. We're pro patient outcome. And so everything that we do today is about creating a convergence point in the near future, in which we marry ancient wisdom, non-toxic, natural remedy with the current oncological system. So we're just creating like a convergence point in the head that's logical. And the way that we felt the smartest that we can do it in a singular monumental moment would be to create a documentary of 12 people's journey where they just get a diagnosis. They come, we take them away for 60 days in Costa Rica. We run through all the regenerative practices that we know to do with them, all the things to help get everything cleared out, the exit pathways, get a lot of good nutrition in them, make sure they're getting all those vitamins and nutrients every day like they're supposed to, make sure their microbiome's working, keep them under medical supervision there as well. But we're not going to ask their oncologist to work with us. What we're actually asking what we're saying to them is, ask your oncologist, do I have 30, 45 days to go take a major vacation and get my affairs in order before I start treatment? And if your oncologist says yes and you want to try, then we'll pay for it. We'll bring you down, do that for 60 days, film the entire thing. In exchange, you're willing to look at the world, see what that part of the journey looked like. Good, bad, or indifferent. Whatever happens, positive, negative, let's just own it. So we tell all 12 stories unedited. Just let it be raw for what it really is. And then what does that mean? Like, what's the information that comes out on the other side? And what we know from the first trial that we did and then our own journey is that we know that the majority of them are going to have significant disease regression the first 60 days alone, that any logical person must say we should be asking more questions. And so that was kind of like our moment where maybe we could create a convergence point where it looked like new information to the closed-minded system of the medical system, which is closed for two reasons, I think. One, because of fear. These doctors have a tremendous responsibility that sits on their shoulders. They don't want to hurt anybody. They don't want to make a suggestion that is untested or unfounded. And then you have the Food and Drug Administration, which just doesn't, it's so illogical. They just, right now, they just recently announced that you can't call almond milk milk. You just got to stop calling milk because it confuses people. If somebody who wants to drink milk from cows might not understand that it came from almonds. Like, what? Like, what about all things we could be dealing with? Really, we can't call almond milk. Like, but we used to for hundreds of years. We called it a nut milk. But we can't today because it'll confuse somebody who's got some seriously low IQ that doesn't understand that an almond's not a cow. I mean, like, that's kind of our weird system, right?
Yeah.
So convergence. And then I think we believe in experiential learning, and that we learn the most when we know who's sharing and whether or not we can trust them, right? You don't care how much someone knows until you know how much they care. So we got to stop acting like the internet's going to solve the world because we're just going to give more information. And we've got to start meeting people eyeball to eyeball, heart to heart, and really flushing out these conversations and becoming better communicators of the difference between fact and feelings. So we can get all excited and we can say something that might not be as factual if we paused and tested everything that we said. So if we test it, then we might be a little bit above reproach, even with the greatest skeptics. So we're looking at that part of the conversation as well. Through experiential learning, we decided that we wanted to participate in what we call the playground. So we have a 65-acre property that's designed to be an intentional community for residential and for wellness, and it's ready to go now. But meanwhile, 12 acres of it makes this incredible space to do events in which you can bring, we have an event that we're landing into that's all about social impact change called We Are Echo, and the Echo is about learning. It's bringing the best storytellers in the world that are all socially, environmentally conscious, and teaching, empowering the next wave of people to be amazing and sharing from their heart what their passion and vision and their mission is. And so that's just like one small event, one that we created. We chose to create a series called Cancer Unplugged, which is really the acoustic version of the conversation that was started by the Truth About Cancer. Phenomenal work that they did, and they're stratospherical. They're so big though that it's hard to get emotionally connected and feel like you know a speaker. So we decided to bring some of those speakers to Costa Rica, and then let a small group of people have unfettered access to them: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, the speakers never leave, late night talks, heart to hearts, right? Like, what would that look like? And so we filmed the entire thing. And so we're just now getting into the edits of this last event, and we'll start sharing those openly. Everything that we do is open source, so we don't own anything. It's always out for everybody. The documentary will be, it's one of the requirements is that there's no monetary gain on it, that it has to go out and change the human record. Is that our desire is to show the proof, and then we do some other stuff in between there.
Yeah.
We had such a great time sailing that I posted on Facebook. Hey, would anybody want to do like a small sail mastermind get together for a week? Get like 4 couples together.
I think I saw that, actually. Did you get some hits on that?
Yeah. As it turns out, apparently people like to do that. So much so that we're actually thinking about doing a couple of them. And what would that be like? And again, those don't have to be income centers. They can literally just be human beings doing something epic. Like, what would you uncover if you did 5 to 7 days? What would it be like if you and I, if all the 4 of us got together and spent a week sailing? What would we learn about, like, what are things that we could just sort of like drill into, and what magic would happen about how we could align and do things together? And then what maybe do you have gaps on, or I have gaps on, that the other person might actually have life experience? I think that's called being human.
Yeah.
Something we've gotten terrible at doing. And so that's just that's our commitment until such a time that we feel like a call to live life differently. We're not. It doesn't define us. It's just like you said, that I had said. It was just, we're just carrying the fire, and then when somebody better at carrying the fire comes along, we're like, oh, he's better at carrying the fire, and we'll do something different. But until then, and then the last part is just to really build a disease reversal center where it doesn't cost a lot of money. There's a lot of amazing people in the world, but when you go to Mexico, most of those facilities are $20,000 or more a week. There's nothing about that in my system that feels like that's the solution.
Yeah.
And we have this vision that we're just galvanized to. It's something around $300 a day where people can come and get everything all inclusive. There's no upsells, there's no surprises, and they can get minimum viable protocol, all the things that you need in order for the body to reverse and turn.
And our protocol is always given free. Yeah. We'll send you a link to it. You can post it for anybody. It's always open to anybody.
Yep.
So it was given to us. We always give it out.
I wanted to humorously say, okay, so what else? But you guys are incredible. One question that I keep also looking at our questions, and you just keep answering them like in dimensions that we could not have possibly thought of, because it sounds to me like you guys have tapped a kind of a well of energy that's just flourishing and manifesting in all these really spectacular ways. But specifically, and maybe this is more a question for us, because like, very quick snapshot of our story, though we won't spend too much time because our listeners know it, but we're selling everything basically. We're moving into a 2005 Dodge Sprinter van that we're converting as we speak. We're just going to drive through the West for a few months, and who knows what will happen after that. Costa Rica is kind of on our list of places. We've been to Costa Rica, but of potential places to live full time in the near or further future, however things kind of play out. So I'm curious, like, why Costa Rica for you guys? How did that happen, and what was the drawdown there? How did that occur?
Yeah, it's never an accident, right?
Yeah.
The universe seems to be constantly working. It seems like God's always got a hand in something. So we knew we wanted to do something. We thought it was Belize. We've been tracking Belize already. Belize was changing. Just the social changes weren't what we were looking for. If you want to go someplace where you can drink a lot and fish a lot, that's a great place to go. When we first started looking, years ago, just in life, it was a little different. So then I was sharing a story about the vision for doing the documentary. We were introduced to a Canadian couple who had a property down there. We went, we looked, we got involved. We made an offer to buy. Ultimately, they drove that offer to maybe we got somebody to pay more than we were willing to. And then it just kept, all roads just kept bringing us back to Costa Rica every single time. And we love the Bahamas, and we love Eastern Caribbean. We love, kind of like gritty corally sand and white beaches, and we love those clear waters. And Costa Rica, that's not actually its strength. It's got this incredible regenerative element. But as we became more and more socially aware, I started asking the question, what would be a space, a geographical space, that you could give evidence if you wanted to prove something on kind of a national level? Where could you play the game that's small enough, controllable enough, but large enough that it has resources, but not so large that you have no influence over it? So a country of 4 million people that is in a wonderful shift in which they're one of the most college-educated populations in the world for third world countries. They are most friendly, more friendly than some other countries can be. And, depending on how you live there, it can be very affordable. If you come in as an American seeking an American level lifestyle, it's more expensive to live down there than it is to live in the United States. It's really weird. If you try to bring that same mentality, if you can sort of pause and relax, you can realize that they live on $3 an hour. It's $2.60 is the minimum wage an hour. If they're surviving on it, and they're living to be 100, maybe it's not as hard of a life. But so you have to start giving up a lot of Chinese plastic crap, and you have to stop thinking that everything has to be big and that everyone cares what your stuff looks like, because that's really not gonna, if you let that go, it can become a country. But we're really interested in, there's a very active youth that is in their 20s and 30s that's coming in on the heels of a history of stewardship of their country. They let it go in the 60s and 70s and signed contracts and deforested and did a bunch of stuff. And they're saying that didn't work. And so they've done a great job in the last 25 years, 20 years, 18 years of reforesting the land. They're recognizing they're trending some negative ways. They want to change that. They also don't really understand nationalism the same way that other countries do. Right? They have no standing army. You can actually pass a police car while going a little over the speed limit, and the police doesn't pull you over. It's very strange. So I'm not sure exactly what you have to do in order to get pulled over, but it must be pretty bad. So there's no sense of police state, and there's not a lot of measurable crime in anywhere in Costa Rica besides maybe a few of the highly industrialized cities where there's a lot of transitory living and a lot of immigration and just sort of lack of stability. But in general, big sense of community and village. And, the regeneration, when you stand on the land that we live at, it's crazy. Like it wants to rebirth itself over and over and over again. And so we came to the conclusion that we would call it sort of like home base. and that we would become maybe citizens of the world. Very thankful that we grew up in the United States, and really excited to see the potential for what the U.S. can do, in the world from an influence and impact space. But right now, I think the prestige the United States holds is that it's the country of being the best consumer in the world, which is completely opposite of our value system. Yeah. We don't want to be consumers. We want to be participants. We want to understand really kind of how the cycle works and what that really feels like to draw from and to return to be more cyclical rather than just to consume. And so I think we look at Costa Rica as being like, nobody really gives a crap about it on the globe. If you want to go grab the resources of a country, it's too small to set up shop and rape and pillage. Dole's about maxed it out. So Dole banana. So no, there's no room left over. So we felt like it was it. And I think that there was enough industrialization that we could still have some of the important benefits of high levels of high-speed internet and strong cell phone communications. It's a very reasonable price for us to still keep our U.S.-based phones and to also have local communications. And then we're an hour and 30 minutes from a major airport. But, we sit atop this pristine environment that's completely untouched, unmolested, and we're up against a blue zone. We live right up against the blue zone. So, what do you say or do? And we're able to deliver care for people at $300 a day. So, right now we're in a cove called Contich on the British Virgin Islands. I think I get confused because we've been so many places. I'm pretty sure we're on Virgin Gorda, and there's a beautiful property for sale, and it's got 7 buildings, smaller than what we would need. And it's only $8.8 million. So my debt service would mean that I would have to charge you way more than $300 a day to give you love and support. So, Costa Rica keeps coming back to that. And again, for us, it was just proximity, ability to travel anywhere in the world relatively quickly.
Yeah.
There's so many more things that we could talk about, but we know we're coming close to the end of our time. So we have 3 questions that we ask at the end of every conversation we have. So we're going to ask you those now. The first is, what book or books up to 3 do you recommend every human being should read? And you can answer together or separately.
3. Oh, thanks. In case you couldn't tell, Theo's the talker in this. He always said, "Oh, great! Now I got to start speaking." That's not my company. So Cancer had different plans for me. Let's see. Gosh, you start, and then I'll think.
I'm an avid reader. One of my favorite books right now is "Seeing Your Life Through New Eyes" by Dr. Paul Brenner. And Dr. Brenner wrote that 18 years ago. He's an OBGYN, a medical doctor with an onco specialty, surgery specialty, who then goes off and gets a PhD in psychology. Epic human being, 83 years old. His life's work is phenomenal. Seeing Your Life Through New Eyes. I think that everyone should read in conjunction. When you're looking, because I think religion is inescapable as part of our human experiences. We have to make a decision that some people go for atheism, polytheism, pantheism, and there's also monotheism. There are so many ways that we look at it. But ultimately, one of my favorite reads that just changed, sort of gave us freedom from a Christian biblical viewpoint, would be to read the Bible through the lens of the work of Colonel Thiem. So Colonel Thiem had a series of books he wrote in the late 60s. Incredible theologian, super freeing, gets rid of all the ridiculous dogmas that religion has pulled out of that whole manuscript. They're like, oh my gosh. And it really kind of goes back to blue pill, red pill again, and you can never look at Christianity the same way. So if you come from that, it's a very freeing space to look at. What other book?
Well, one of them that I definitely read was when I was going through cancer was Suzanne Summers' Knockout.
Yeah.
It was really good and made me go, wow, she interviews all the different doctors that you'll see in The Truth About Cancer or just have heard about, and some of them aren't even around anymore in that short period of time where she wrote the book. So that was definitely one that is right up there.
Good call.
I'm trying to think of what else.
That's 3 books.
That's 3. Okay,
3.
well,
good.
Check. Second question. Second question. What's the best meal you've ever had?
Ooh.
Best meal you've ever had.
For me, it's an easy answer. It's the protocol, because I lost 110 pounds and got my life back. And I got my life back. So For me, it's the protocol. But we are foodies, and
Yeah.
we've eaten in a lot of amazing places.
Yeah.
That's a tough one because
I
we've
don't
really
know.
met some amazing chefs.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Gosh.
detailed the protocol is, but maybe you can give us a quick flavor of what it's like, since we didn't get into that detail.
It's every imaginable good for you green vegetable you can think of, and a bunch more. But it definitely has a lemon, lime, orange, apple, ginger, turmeric, celery, cucumber, chard, 3 types of kale, dandelion leaf, spinach, pineapple,
parsley,
parsley.
everything you could imagine. It's a salad
Yeah.
squished into a juice, 3 times a day. And
Yeah.
it's delicious. It really is. I was really surprised the first time I ever tried it. I was scared. I'm like, oh no, I got to drink this. And I taste it. I'm like, oh, I can do this. This
Yep.
is amazing. Mine, we've come up with amazing recipes since we went plant-based, and, we're out on this boat, and it's hard to provision for a week when you're sailing. And so, especially when you're doing plants. And so we've done lentil burgers a couple times, which are amazing. And, people are like, this is a burger. This is amazing, because they think that you have to eat crap when you're eating plant-based. And you're like, no, you can eat amazing.
Yeah.
Chocolate cheesecake that's raw, that's delicious, and, stuff like that. So we've definitely ate better since we've been plant-based than we did in any Chicago restaurant.
Oh, yeah. More delicious.
Yeah, totally. It seems like turmeric is in everything that's healthy and good, by the way. I can't stop eating turmeric.
The third question is, what have you learned in the last 30 days that you think every person should know?
Oh, there's a lot of beauty out there. You need to take the time to go see it. If you think you've lived life, you haven't. Stretch.
Stretch. That's great.
Wow, there's so many lessons in the last 30 days because we've been sailing for almost 30 days. And so we've gotten to see so many travelers and so many people that are indigenous to the area. I think one of the strongest lessons that I've learned in the last 30 days is just a reminder lesson that I learned that we all have a value system each, and it's made up of things that were all unconsciously assigned to us. Either they were early familial patterning, their early life experience, or they may be epigenetically loaded. We might even have an emotional state of being that was preloaded. And it's not the same as our partner, and it's not the same as the person that we might be talking to in an important conversation. And understanding that their value system has merit, even though it might be in opposition of yours, allows us to not get emotionally triggered or upset, and to really sort of just really, really connect in a different way. And so I'm just reminded of that, or learned that again in the last 30 days, and even in our own relationships. It's like little things can mean a lot more to somebody else, and something that I might think is really big, somebody else might not even understand why I would think it was important.
Yeah, when you're on a 44 foot sailboat for 30 days, you don't have somewhere you can go hide all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Constantly. I think we had a little discussion the other day, is what we call it, and that sucks. Let's just look at each other for now and go, we don't want to do that anytime we're going to have an argument. Let's not do that, okay? So we've been practicing that for 30 days.
That's good.
That's great.
Good for us as we head off in our 20-foot van.
Well, I think last question, or I guess this is sort of more of a wrap-up, but just very briefly tell people where to find you guys online. What are the best locations, websites, social media, etc., and then what would you like people to know about what's coming up for you?
Oh, thank you so much. I think the simplest one is kimandcancer.com. Just KIMAND cancer.com. Kim and Cancer. It changes a bunch. You can find us there, and you can get in. There's so much to share, and we're so willing to, and we're so open about allowing people to come in and figure out if any of it matters in their life. And then coming up, on the 22nd to the 25th, there's weareecho.org is an event that we'll be speaking at that has an amazing speaker lineup, including Christiana Figueres, who is the lead negotiator of COP21, Paris Climate. I mean, like, what an amazing chance to spend 3 days with her and talking about these things. And then I think as far as just how else, you'll get us there. And there's anything we're doing, it's probably, if you care about the planet, you care about being healthy, then something we're doing is going to probably be of interest.
Yes, sweet. Well, guys, thanks a million. Wonderful to talk to you.
So wonderful.
We hope to meet you in person someday soon.
You have an open invitation. If you guys can find the time, come on down. We've got room in Costa Rica for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
That sounds pretty good.
Sounds really good.
I want you guys to take a snapshot of yourselves after this and send it to us so we can
That
have
would be
this image
great
on
to
the
use
page.
on
It's
the
beautiful.
We will.
You got it. Will do.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.
All right, that's it for this week's Ownstream podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this fantastic and important interview with Kimberly and Theo Hanson. Please be sure to check out the show notes for this episode for links to everything mentioned, including their website, social media channels, all the books and other resources discussed, and more. All of that can be found at ownstream.co Hanson. That's ownstream.co/Hanson, Hanson.
Also, before we let you go, as we mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, please sign up for our weekly tip-off email at ownstream.co and just click the sign up button in the upper right-hand corner. This is where we share each Monday 3 cool things we've learned in the last week in the areas of lifestyle, business, and spirit. This could be an amazing quote, individual tip, or tool designed to bring you more freedom and power in your life. So definitely sign up for that again at ownstream.co and just click sign up.
Finally, please do find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Ownstream. Be the first to know about new podcast episodes, new blog content, and cool stuff related to our personal journey. Also, we're on Twitter at Ownstream and on Instagram, where we do post regularly at own_stream. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Ownstream podcast. To learn more and connect with us, please visit ownstream.co or follow us on Twitter at Ownstream and Instagram at own_stream.